What's up, guys? This is Jairo Morales from the Grind Fitness Training Systems, and today we're going to talk about mobility. Okay, so this term gets used a lot in social media, just gets used a lot everywhere, to be honest with you. And I'm here to explain to you what the difference is, because most people confuse passive range of motion for active range of motion. They're two different things. Okay, so I wrote here mobility equals passive range, or the axis that you have in that range of motion, plus active control, which is the stability. So what that basically means is this gives you range of motion. This also gives you range of motion, but it gives it to you through stability. So stability is important because that's where like injury occurs when you're unstable, especially when you're actively doing stuff like grappling and striking and stuff like that. So let's go through the specifics. We're going to start in this column here. So think passive range of motion. What is it? It's some type of external force. External force could be somebody stretching you. It could be you sitting on the wall with your legs out in front of you, or the wall. Yeah, sitting against the wall. The wall and the actual ground are actually like external forces that are forcing you into that range of motion. That's passive range of motion. Now, there is some safety mechanisms that your body has. One of the primary ones is what's called the Golgi tendon organ. And what that is just it's a safety mechanism so that you don't accidentally hurt yourself. So just imagine if you were to like a slip or something like that, you've accidentally fall into the splits. Your body has a safety mechanism to kind of contract everything so you don't rip your own muscle off. And this is important because what you got to do is there's like a protocol to kind of get around the Golgi tendon organ. So what the common set is 2 minutes. I usually go like 90 seconds to 3 minutes, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. And then you can actually start working on other stuff. So when you do passive range of motion, it's more like sit in the stretch and be in the stretch for a long period of time. It's not about like short, like little spurts, like 10 seconds here and pulsating 30 seconds here. No, it's finding whatever musculature or wherever you want to stretch and then sitting in that position for up to 2 minutes. Okay. How often should I do it? Honestly, every day. It's a forever thing. This is it's a marathon. You're no matter how good you get at things, if you're an active person, things are going to get kinked, things are going to get backwards. You're going to have a neck thing, you're going to have a back thing, a leg thing, a hip thing, a knee thing. It's just part of being active. And so if you're not constantly trying to recalibrate the body back to being a good body, that's when like chronic pain starts to kind of set in over time. So it's extremely important that you do passive range of motion because it gets you in tune with your nervous system and your body. And it also helps kind of like regulate or like bring the body back to zero, if that makes sense, from all the other activity that you might be doing. So here's the difference between passive and active. So when you're doing passive and active, this is why I do this a little bit. This is me laying down. Sorry for my horrible handwriting. In passive range of motion, external force, you're going to be able to get more range of motion than the active range of motion. The downfall to passive range of motion is there's no actual strength gains. It's only range of motion. So when you do passive, you're not actually getting stronger. You're just getting more, you just have increased range of motion. So there's no strength gains with this. And that's why you got to work on active range of motion. So now I'm going to switch sides here. Active range of motion means internal force. And what that means is basically that with my leg power, I was able to lift my leg from the ground to this position with my leg straight. Here is an external force. It could be like a strap around my foot, or somebody could be stretching me, whatever that range is. But when you're doing active, I'm internally generating the power to get to that range of motion. Where does injury usually occur? So I wrote here passive range of motion minus active range of motion equals X degrees. Obviously, that's different for every single individual, so I can't really answer that. But you got to figure out what those degrees are for yourself and then try to reduce it over time. So again, I go back to this little drawing here, active and passive. The degrees here, whatever that degrees is, whether it's 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 20 degrees, I don't know what those degrees are. Whatever it is, you want to try to get it closer and closer to the passive range of motion. You're always going to have more passive than active, but the idea is to decrease the degrees between the active range of motion and the passive range of motion. Okay, how often should I do it? It depends. Okay, so it depends on which route you want to take. Do you want to focus on mobility, which I would recommend every single person do for at least a month. Um, because it's a different type of working out. It's not something that it's not normal. It's not like a normal type of, you have to generate internal force, and there's a little bit of a learning curve with it. If you try to pepper it in with your workout on the front side, if you've never done it before, it's not going to be nearly as effective. So I would recommend to everybody, to be honest with you, is to focus on mobility for the very first month, which is why in my program is what we do. We do the first month is all mobility, because most of you don't understand how to use your body. Most of you don't have very good communication to your hips. Most of you don't have good communication to your spine. It's just a common thing. Even I'm still working on stuff, and I've been doing it for a really long time. So yeah, so when you first start, you want to focus on mobility. Once you learn it and you understand the concept and the fundamentals of the mobility, then you start peppering it in within your workout. And that's where you do things like range of motion stuff when you're squatting or deadlifting, or you're doing plyometrics where you're learning how to decelerate. So you combine these exercises with some of the passive flexibility. You also can pepper in active range of motion exercises as a prep for bigger motions like plyometrics, box jumps, broad jumps, things like that, where you're exploding and trying to max out the range of motion by using what passive range of motion that you can have and generate in order for the active to actually be more effective. That sounded like a lot of words back and forth, saying a whole lot of nothing, but it's, believe me, it'll help. When you start doing mobility classes, you're going to notice that, or mobility just in general, you're going to notice it's common to get cramps. And the reason why you get cramps is because you're working on the short end and on the long end of the muscle. Basically what happens, which I should have drawn one of these, the muscle is like this. This is the tendon. Okay, this is the actual muscle tissue. So most of us lift and work out in this area here, in the middle side. What we're working on is when it's the muscle's fully extended, kind of like that, okay? Or it's super short, where this distance is very close together. And when that happens, you get cramps because your nervous system doesn't understand how to contract in that short and on the long end. So it's just common. So just be prepared that you're going to get cramps. For me, I kind of almost like want to get cramps for me because I'm a little bit of a masochist. But the reason why is because I feel like it's like a really large learning situation for your nervous system. When it cramps, your nervous system goes into overdrive. And I feel like once I've cramped a little bit, like I get a little bit more access, if that makes sense. It could be like a fraction of a degree, but I just feel like I have just a little bit more control over that movement. So I personally that's how when I do stuff, I'm like, I don't chase it necessarily, but I'm almost kind of looking for it, if that makes sense. So just to reiterate, I actually did this down at the bottom. I already said this, but basically what active range of motion is getting strength gains with the new range of motion. So here's just range of motion. Here is controlling or being stable with the new range of motion, guys. I hope that explains everything. Kind of went into a lot of detail there. So let me know if you have any questions. If you're part of my program, awesome. If you're not, get a part of my program. It's right now, I just launched it specifically for combat sports athletes. So I'll put the link down below so that you can register and take it from there, man.